Okay, how you doing today, everybody? I made a video earlier, and I promised to bring Roshan from EOS Authority on. So here he is, live, block producer candidate, straight from London, England. And I got to say one thing to you before I even start. It's 12:27 a.m., May 25th, and I am this is my birthday. So today is my birthday. So I can't think of a better way to start my birthday than with you, Roshan, in London, England, talking about EOS. So this is the great birthday for me because I love talking to EOS, and I like to talk to people that know a lot about everything as far as EOS is concerned. You contacted me, and I appreciate that. And the one thing I think that you contacted me about is that the registration, as far as EOS is concerned, that we not have a lot of people have still yet to register. I don't know how those numbers are looking right now, but when you emailed me a while ago, that there are a lot of people still hadn't register. So if you can talk a little bit about that, and then we can talk about being a block producer. Go ahead. I'll let you go.
Great. Happy birthday, by the way.
And, thank you very much. Total transparency. I'm 58 years old.
Yeah. That's great. So yeah, thanks a lot for allowing us to get this opportunity to share with your audience all the things about EOS that we know. Yeah, it's really great. So we are a EOS block production candidate. We are a team based in London, UK, and our website is eosauthority.com. We'll start off with your questions on the registration. Let me just have a quick look at our website. We have this tool on our website to have a look at what the registration percentage is. Currently, it's standing at around 45%. So, including Block 1's 100 million tokens, we have around 440 million tokens that's registered. We have around 539 million that is left to be registered. So it's quite significant number of tokens that are still to be registered. So a significant portion of them are with exchanges. So hopefully they will get the registrations done in the next few days, hopefully.
So, yeah. Okay, and so if you're with Binance or somebody like that, then you're automatically registered. You don't have to worry about doing the registration. But if you're not, if you're holding the private key, how would you do that? How do you walk me through the process?
Exactly. So if you're with a lot of exchanges like Binance, KuCoin, Bitfinex, and so on, they will do the registration for you. So you don't have to do anything. So if your funds are with them, they have all separately announced that on their Twitter and so on, that they would do it for you. If you have your EOS sitting on a private Ethereum wallet on MetaMask or MyEther wallet or your private key, you will have to follow a simple registration process. It just takes about 5 minutes. We have a link which I'll give you and you can post in the show notes. It's a fairly simple process, like a 5-minute step. You'll have to send Ether to the EOS smart contract address and have your create your EOS private key, public key pair. The whole thing is like 5 minutes. I'll send you the link. It's much better than me explaining it.
Yeah, I see it. It's on your website too. Is that on your website too with the EOS Authority? Is it, there's a way to check your wallet to see if there's EOS to see if it's registered with EOS?
Exactly. So what we are hoping to do is we could see the potential problem with registrations. And back in June, we started back in Jan, we started our website. You just put in your Ethereum address, the public Ethereum address on our site. It'll show you what your account name will be when EOS launches in June, what's your EOS balance, if you have completed the registration or not. And if you haven't completed the registration, it'll show you a link. You just follow that steps, complete a registration, come back to our website and just check if you have completed it. So the whole idea of our website was to be a one-stop place to complete the whole registration process. And it doesn't ask for your private key or anything. It just asks for your public key and completes the whole step. Yeah.
Okay, and let me ask you this question because I've had this question before. If I don't, let's say for whatever reason, I just don't do it, are those tokens worthless at that point, or is there going to be some way in the system to give me my EOS tokens after June 2nd?
Yes, that's a very good question, and this was something that was a big question for everybody in the community. And like Dan is like a pretty good big genius in this field, and what Dan Latimer did is he's come up with this excellent solution for people who haven't registered. You can essentially convert your Ethereum private key to an EOS private key and then unlock your EOS. So let me explain it. So currently you have your EOS sitting in with your Ethereum key. So the only way to access your EOS is using your Ethereum private key. You can access your EOS. So the code is changed so that by June 1st, whoever hasn't registered, they will all be assigned a public key based on their Ethereum public key. So this is a bit complicated, but the idea is as long as you have your Ethereum private key, Block One has come up with some solution which the community will implement. As long as you have your Ethereum private key, there is a way to convert Ethereum private key to EOS private key and then use the account. So this is a really clever solution, and this wasn't possible up until like a few weeks ago. We've got the latest code from Block One, and this is really good solution. So theoretically, a lot of problems with the registration would be solved, and a vast number of tokens would still come over. So as long as you have access to your Ethereum private key, you're all good.
That's good. I kind of thought that's the way it was going to work out. But I'm always afraid to talk about wallets and registration and stuff, because I know it can be a little bit, I mean, unless you're familiar with all the different wallets out there and all the different ways of converting and stuff, I just try to stay away from that. So I don't really talk about it. But I kind of thought maybe that's the way it would be. So, but you don't want to take that risk. You still want to make sure you try to register them ahead of time. So
the easiest solution is to register. Make sure that you control your private key, public key. You can change your key. All that works perfect. So the best step is please finish registration before June 1st. Ideally today.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people still waiting to do that. And of course, you know, we're in the United States, which means we've been blocked by even purchasing it because they don't want to take the risk of maybe being identified as a security in this country. So what about people in the United States? Are they going to have any problem after June 2nd with the switchover?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to comment on that, but I don't think of a problem. I have seen on the forums a lot of people use VPNs and so on, and they complete the registration. So I can't see a problem at all, but it's more of a legal thing, so I don't know how best to answer that. But I would say I can't see, as long as you complete your registration, it doesn't matter where in the world you are. You hold the private key to your EOS, and that's it. It doesn't matter. You can just send it to any exchanges, send it with an EOS. It's totally fine.
Good. Okay, now that we got that cleared up, let's talk a little bit about being a block producer. So I got to ask you this. What is I know it's the Jungle Testnet. What is your Jungle Testnet name? What do you
so the whole block producers, there are around 150 odd block producers, and like it's a very large group to get together. There's all sorts of time zones and so on. So we've got together with EOS Canada and a lot of other block producers, and we are running a testnet called the BIOS Boot testnet. There is a Jungle testnet. There is one testnet in China, and there is another testnet called Ghostbusters. So there are at least 4 different testnets that would potentially launch the mainnet come June 2nd. So, yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. So there's a number of testnets going on right now to launch the mainnet. So how many testnets have we got going on right now?
Okay, so as far as I know, there could be more, but I'm pretty sure there's at least 4. It could be 5 or 6. So these are different block producers that get together, and they all like one method, because you cannot get 150 people to agree. They all agree on the EOS code base, the snapshot. There's no question about that. So all that is perfect. It is just how to launch, what is the most secure way. That is where the block producers have differences on. And time zone wise, it's very hard to coordinate somebody from China, somebody from United States and UK, all over the world. So they're more comfortable with launching their own testnets, making sure they're all happy with the tools. And then the idea is, once one of the testnets get over 15% of the votes, every block producer would just migrate to that. So that's the whole idea now.
Okay, so as soon as the testnet launches, then there will be a mechanism in place. I think through the WASM, is that the way it does it? Through the to be able to vote, to be able to make your choice as far as block producer is concerned. Is that the way it's done through the browser?
Yeah, exactly. So there will be a voting website which is being created by the community again. block one cannot officially be involved in making a wallet or like a voting app and all that. So the community is taking up this whole bit. You would have a voting portal where you would go in and you would select up to 30 block producers that you like, and you can select which of the nets you prefer. So as a voter, you can decide, okay, connect to this mainnet, and I decide to vote here. And then different people would decide which of the different networks they like to see as a mainnet. You can even vote on multiple nets if you want. And the idea is whichever is first to 15%, all the block producers would go there and they would shut down the other net. That's the whole idea.
Okay, so 15%. And we talked a little bit earlier before we started this broadcast about block one owning 100 million tokens. So they have a lot of weight in deciding who's going to be block producer, correct?
Exactly. They account to 10% of the EOS that's outstanding. So they just need another 5% to come in, and they would get their 15% to unlock the mainnet.
Yeah, very interesting. So and then after the mainnet gets launched, 15% consensus, and it starts to operate, then the community also has voting privileges for other things too. In fact, from my understanding, they can even increase the number of block producers from 21 to something else if they decide, right?
Exactly. So anything is changeable. So this is another excellent feature of EOS is they have the best governance system and arbitration system on any blockchain. It's really non-existent on any other blockchain. So with the governance structure in place, if the community comes together, there wouldn't be a hard fork or anything like that, because the community would get to essentially vote on the direction. And it's like, so that's the best case. So exactly as you mentioned, all these things could be changed. And if 15 of the 21 block producers decide, they could pretty much change anything on the chain. They could execute arbitration orders, they could execute updates to the smart contracts, anything. 15 of 21.
Okay, and then if the block producers are always under the ability to be voted out too, right? I mean, if somebody, how does that work? I mean, how often are the votes placed for the block producers, and how often would it be available for somebody to be voted out? I mean, is that something that's ongoing, or is that something that just takes place once in a while? Or I don't even know, how's it written into the contract or the Constitution, as Dan Lemmer says.
Okay, perfect. So how it works is EOS doesn't have a concept of vote out. They just have a concept of vote increasing the vote. So what you have to do is, if you don't like a BP candidate, you'll have to remove your vote for that candidate and then vote for another candidate. So the more votes that you give to other candidates, and then they're just ranked. So one EOS can vote for up to 30 different block producers. The whole idea is, if a group doesn't like one block producer, the only thing you can do is get your group not to vote for them. Anybody else who votes for them, their rank would stay. It's just how many people vote for you, and then sort by the top 21. The top 21 voters, top 21 block producers get to produce blocks. Others are all standby.
Yeah, very interesting, because this is a dynamic platform where things can be changed, which is, like you say, keeps things from forking.
And just one more thing on voting, which is interesting, is there's something called a half-life on a vote. So if somebody has 1,000 EOS and they vote for a block producer candidate, there is a half-life of 1 year. So within 1 year, if let's say on June 1st, June 2nd, you go in, you vote for block producer A with 1,000 EOS. After 1 year, it would gradually reduce every day, every week, and it would be only having 500 EOS worth of vote to that block producer. So it's not like whoever gets all the votes in the beginning can just stay block producer for life. There is a vote half-life for all the votes. It keeps reducing, half-life of 1 year. So it will be 500 after 1 year, 250 of the next year. It just keeps going down and down. So the idea with the code is the block producer have to continuously earn their votes and so on.
That's very interesting. But all during this whole process, block one still maintains 10% of the voting privileges, right?
Yeah, exactly. So back in the initial code, the idea was block one would get 10%, which is 100 million tokens, and it would vest to them over a period of 10 years. So 100 million, you would gradually release tokens every day for 10 years. It would take 10 years for block one to get 100 million in their wallet. And the code was changed like a few weeks, like a month ago, so that on day, although the logic still stays the same, block one would get to vote with the full 100 million power on day one of the block. So they could essentially bring the whole 100 million and vote for a block producer. So
Okay.
there was a big change.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your background, and tell me how you got into block producing, and tell me a little bit about, you get EOS Authority, your organization there in London.
Yeah, great. So like I've been personally involved with Bitcoin back in 2003, and then Ethereum was the big thing, and it lived up to its promise, but it couldn't live up to its true vision. So how I got into it was I used to write smart contracts in Ethereum, and it was really slow, and it takes a lot of gas for customers, and it couldn't get executed properly, and there's lots of problems. So that's when we were looking at alternatives, and we saw EOS, and right from the beginning, we have a small team of like 4 people. All of us were interested in EOS. We were very early investors right from the ICO time, from the first few days. So we were right involved from there. And then back in December, we were like, we wanted to get actively involved in EOS. And back in December, there were something like maybe 4 block producers. They were like, we need 21 block producers to get this consensus and system going. And we were like, hey, let's get into the race. So we got it in January. We started the website, the whole registration check, and all those kind of things. And so that's how we got started with the whole EOS. And today we have like 160 block producers, really interesting space. The whole thing is getting started very well. So yeah, so that's a bit of history on us. Yeah.
And also, I think that I've listened to Don Lermer talk a little bit about this, how because of the latency and the time in developing the blocks, that their block producers need to be spread out around the world, that you can't just have a concentration of one area, correct?
Exactly. So the idea with block producers is to be as geographically distributed as possible. So we have 21 different block producers. The hope is that the voters would see where these different block producers they're voting for are located, and they would try and spread around their votes so that they'll have maximum geographical and jurisdictional coverage. So that's the whole idea with them.
Okay, and like you say, with block one having some, effect on that because they have 10% of the voting privileges. I'm sure that's what they're trying to maintain, some sort of geographic diversity. Because I've heard people talk about they're afraid certain areas of the world are going to be more concentrated with block producers in other areas. So it's in the interest of people to make sure that the block producers are throughout the world and not just in one particular geographic location if they're voting. So
exactly. And then there's another concept with EOS called, so you have 21 main block producers that can produce blocks at if 7 BP. So it doesn't have to be that all 21 have to be taken out to stop production. If 7 BPs are taken out of the system, we won't get something called an irreversible block. So only if 15 block producers agree to a block, then only the block is confirmed and final. So if just 7 BPs are taken out, then EOS would essentially stop for that while. So then all the block producers would stop producing blocks because 7 BPs are out. So although we say the number 21, we need at least more than 7 to, we need at least 15 to be active and working at all times.
Okay, very good. So talk a little bit about the RAM. I'm kind of interested in how that works, and also we're interested in how the resources are distributed among the like I think a lot of people that own this platform probably or own the token aren't going to be developing on it. So how would that work? How would their RAM be distributed? How are the resources given out to other people? How's that going to happen?
Great. So one unique distinctive point about EOS is that there is no transaction fee. It's a feeless environment. And how they get to the feeless model is, the biggest reason is that they don't have to waste a lot of electricity like Bitcoin and Ethereum on mining. That is one of the biggest reasons why fees is free. And the idea with the whole EOS is funded with inflation. So you have this 5%. I mean, 1% is allocated to block producers. So that goes on paying for the inflation. Now, so this is where the RAM comes. So about a month ago, up until a month ago, the idea was you own 1% of EOS. You're allocated to 1% of the RAM, 1% of the CPU, and 1% of all the transaction power. That was the idea. And then that still stays the same, except there is a small change to the RAM. Because how RAM works is all the block producers have to decide how much RAM they will bring to the system. So if, let's say, we have block producer A, which brings in 1 terabyte of RAM, which is approximately 1 gigabyte, and we have another block producer that brings in 500 gigabytes, another person that brings in, let's say, 20 gigabytes. How it works is the lowest block producer of the 21, that is the amount of memory that is allocated for the system. So it's not like the maximum, it's like the lowest. So among the 21, who brings the lowest RAM, that person's RAM is essentially what is set as the EOS RAM. So if you have, let's say, 1,000 gigabyte as the basic minimum on RAM, that means your 1% of EOS gets 1% of the 1,000 gigabytes of RAM. So what Dan and the team found is that there could be a potential where because of this in computing called Moore's law, which most of you are familiar with, computing power, the RAM power will keep going up. So we can be fairly certain that in 5 years' time, today's processing power will be more than double. It will be more than double RAM and all those kind of metrics. So the idea is the supply will keep increasing, but in short term, there could be a successful DApp or something like that. So they just wanted to avoid speculators from buying up RAM and all that. There is this 1% fee that is introduced now. So each time you buy or you sell RAM, there is like a 1% fee. So this is very interesting concept. The whole Dan pushed it like, if this works the way he thinks it is, the whole inflation of block producers 1% will be paid off by the RAM trading. So every time you trade RAM, that RAM fee is burned. So let's say somebody buys 1,000 EOS worth of RAM, the buyer and the seller pays 1% each. So each time the RAM trading happens, and then whatever fee is generated is not paid to a block producer, it's just burned. So the idea is that the vision is there will be lots of RAM trading in such a way that the whole 1% annual inflation of BPs would be completely paid off by RAM trading. So that's a very interesting. This is just launched in like a few weeks ago. So this is a brand new. This is very interesting concept yet again.
Yeah, the Banco algorithm. You talked about that. That's fascinating. I mean, just every time I think about stuff like this. I mean, I've talked about what my background is, and when I see some of the stuff they've done, I understand that they're not only technology people, but they're also innovative as far as their marketing and as far as the way they've thought this out, in far as their whole structure, their whole infrastructure. This platform is concerned, not only from the way they've offered the token, but the way they've structured now the resources are being able to be, like you say, through the Banco algorithm. There's a market for it, and then not only that, to be able to structure some sort of governance as far as all the activity that's going on within the dynamic platform that they have. So this is very intelligent bunch of people that are working on this.
Exactly.
I'm really impressed.
Yeah, every piece, you look at any part of the project, everything is thought through so well. So even just on the ERC20 contract, that is this ICO contract that is sitting on Ethereum, there was a recent hack on with ICOs. There was a bug in a lot of popular ICOs, and one of the ICOs that were not affected was the EOS ICO. So you can see that every little thing that they have talked about. So even the registration problem that we're talking about, vast number of like wallets are unregistered. They've come up with an amazing solution for it. So the entire team is like really impressive. The way they have incentivized block producers to come in, the whole arbitration, the governance system. Like I can't even think of a single fault with the whole system. But it's like really interesting, and
yeah, it's very interesting to me. Now, the way are you communicating with everybody through Telegram, or how does it that everybody goes back and forth on these ideas?
Yeah, so we have primarily on Telegram, And we also recently, block producers have started Keybase. It's like a more secure end-to-end encrypted channel called Keybase. A lot of block producers are talking on Keybase and so on. It's really end-to-end encrypted. So a message that goes from one BP can only be seen by the end BP. Telegram is really secure. It's very good for the secret chat and the single chat. The group chats are more kind of, it's not that secure as it's the other options like secret chat with Telegram. So most of the chat happens on Telegram and on Keybase at the moment.
Okay, I got to get your inside perspective. So what do you see happening on June 2nd? How's this going to just take off? Tell me what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a very good question. That's what we all think about every day here in BBs. Like there are a lot of scenarios. The best case scenario, the worst case scenario, the normal case scenario. So let's go through all these things. So the best case scenario, June 2nd, we'll have four different block producers, four different block producer groups. One of them would, the community would say yes, they have applied all the balances correctly, they applied all the snapshots correctly, everything is looking good, they're stable, they're not being attacked. Let's go ahead, we'll vote for that, we unlock our tokens with them. They successfully get 20-25% of the EOS unlocked. All of a sudden, transactions are activated, everything works perfectly, exchanges connect to that their network, all the fees are, all the transactions keep moving around, everything is smooth from that point. That's the best case scenario. The normal case scenario, what I'm expecting is we will have some issues with some, we will have a block producing group. It will be attacked by, there are a lot of vested interests that like to see EOS fail. I don't know, you can think about all the different groups that don't like to see EOS succeed. They like to call EOS a scam or whatever. They don't get the whole idea. There could be attacks called DDoS. DDoS is essentially distributed denial of service. You can see it on the newspapers all the time with botnets and things. It's quite easy these days to have botnets that send gigabytes of traffic to a single node and try to take them down. So, and it's quite easy with EOS to just query the EOS, see exactly who are the block producers, their servers are located, but block producers are setting up all the relevant defenses for it. But it's quite easy to send gigabytes of traffic to them and so on. So we expect to see such problems happening all the time. And this is the normal case scenario. Normal case scenarios will be attacked by a lot of different things. There could be potential bugs or something with implementation or something, but these things would be patched fairly quickly. Nothing that is show-stopping. There would be issues and will be continuous firefighting for about a week or two. That's the normal case scenario I'm thinking of. And in the worst case scenario, we would have like a block production team that's taken down by some DDoS temporarily. Transactions don't work. We'll have to, there might be a bug in the code. We might have to restart the network again. And there will be a downtime of about a week. It might take like a week or two for everything to get back. So this is the three different scenarios. I hope I haven't scared anyone too much. But these are the three scenarios that's possible.
Yeah, I've never been I'm a programmer. I've been a programmer for a long time, almost 20 years. And I've never seen a software problem that couldn't be fixed if you put enough energy and time and money into it. So I'm not worried about the launch. Let me ask you this: when will the actual dApps be up and available for people to start to? When can that happen? After the mainnet launches, then we can all start developing dApps on that, right?
Exactly. So currently, as far as I know, there's lots of teams working on dApps at the moment with their own private testnet, so they can start developing. I'm sure you will see a lot of dApps in the first week. They're all working actively for several months. I know of a few dApps already that have been working back from Feb. They're working actively. There's Everypedia, ERIO, all those kind of things are ready. They're working with a big team for months, and they're all working on the testnet. So they would, and until 15% of the tokens vote for a block producer, you can't install dApps, you can't send EOS to any other wallet, you can't do pretty much anything on EOS other than vote until the first 15% have unlocked their token. So you should see all these dApps like EveryPD and all that launch within June 2nd or the first week of June.
Okay, good. And the way it works now is the WASM, which I'm not that familiar with, the WebAssembly, is on your browser, which is the compiler for the C++, right?
Okay, so how it works is you write your smart contract in C++, and there is this little compiler which you run on. You can run on anywhere. So WebAssembly is like a very popular standard, which is supported by Google, Firefox, Microsoft. All the big companies have come together and supported WebAssembly. So it's not an EOS specific thing, but the advantage is the whole IT community is support behind WebAssembly. And the idea is you can compile different languages down to WebAssembly. So unlike a lot of other blockchains, you have to write in the language that they bring in. So like Solidity or Cardano has Haskell and so on. With EOS, C++ is the preferred route, but you can essentially write your smart contract in different languages, compile it down to WASM, which is WebAssembly module code, and just upload this to the EOS blockchain, and it lets you some. You can compile it anywhere. You can compile on your browser, you compile it on your Mac, Linux, bring it anywhere, and then just upload it to your smart contract in your account, and you're all set to go.
Okay, so if I want to write something in JavaScript, I can go ahead and compile it through the compiler, and it will accept my JavaScript, correct?
Yeah, so that is possible in theory, but currently only C++, the compiler is there. In matter of months, you will have JavaScript compiler and so on coming up. But at the moment, it's just C++.
Yeah, see, I understood, and I think the reason Dan did that is because the C++, there's a lot of libraries. There's a lot of assistance on the internet, because it's a language that's been around since the late '60s, early '70s. C and C++, and now C# and everything. But see, like so many people write in JavaScript or some web-friendly languages. I mean, I don't know why people use Solidity, but So there will be ways to write in other languages. You're not exclusively limited to C++ if you're not a developer in C++, correct?
Exactly. And then if you look at it, right, most of the smart contracts do not exceed something like 300 to 400 lines. So the entire ERC20 ICO contract for EOS is very complicated. You have ICO happening every day for 1 year. You have registration and all those kind of features. Is just 500 lines. So we put up this Space Invaders game. The vast majority of the game is just JavaScript and other third-party libraries and tools and stuff. The actual smart contract is just 50 lines. So C++ might scare a lot of people away, but if you look at what's actually happening, none of the smart are more than 500 to 1,000 lines. Like if you write a smart contract which is 1,000 lines long, it is really sophisticated. It's like double the complexity of the EOS ERC20 contract. So this is where people shouldn't be too scared about C++. I totally understand that JavaScript is more user-friendly and more easier to understand. But if you look at it from a smart contract programming point of view, pretty much anybody who can watch like 2 to 3 hours of video. So there is this Nathan James from Scatter. He's really top EOS developer. If you look at his videos, if you are a good developer and if you're an average developer, just listen to like 3 videos of his, you're up and running. You can write C++ code quite easily. And I'm pretty sure that covers something like 80 to 90% of the use cases you can think of with a smart contract. So don't be scared about C++ is what I got to tell everybody. Because you're writing small code.
Yeah, I kind of assume that too, that you shouldn't be too afraid. And I don't think C++ is the, it's not something that everybody uses. But I think it's not the hardest language in the world to pick up either. I mean, there's lots of tutorials, lots of stuff on the internet too. And I'm going to brush up on the C++ too, because it's not something I'm used to using.
Yeah, but yeah, there's lots of videos, there's really good videos. And there is a person on our team called Jack. If you look at his channels, like he's gone through step by step all the videos. It just takes around 2 to 3 hours to cover all the videos. I'm fairly sure you can make a game like what we have done with Space Invaders just after watching those videos, which is really useful.
Yeah, that was a very good video that you made. I remember you sending it to me, and it was really interesting the way you did that. That was a good way to show how much time how quickly the blocks are being produced. So how
Exactly.
fast?
So
What are the transactions per second right now? I think I read someplace on Telegram that they're like, how fast are the blocks being produced right now? What do they got the times down to?
yeah, so like on a single testnet node, like easily you can get 1,000 transactions per second. We have this jungle testnet which is run by Crypto Alliance and a few other block producers. Uh, I think I've seen something like 600 to 700 transactions per second as of yesterday. That's running on multiple nodes, and these nodes are not really production ready, heavy duty servers. They're just test servers for now. They managed to run something like 600 to 700 transactions per second, and it could easily scale up as you add additional computing power. And like there's all these things called inter blockchain and so on, which can scale up to potentially infinite transactions. Because yeah, it's another discussion thing. But yeah, so to answer your question, around 600 to 700 transactions per second is easy for EOS at the moment.
Okay, and then when the parallel blocks are built alongside this is the interblocker connectivity where you can talk to blockchain to blockchain. This is where you can really get infinite speeds, correct?
Exactly. So there is no limit. So this is one again. There's a million new features and a million unique features with EOS. Another feature that was really exciting is the inter-blockchain communication. So what happens with inter-blockchain communication is you have the primary EOS blockchain with let's say around 40, 50 block producers are actively producing on it. You can have as many side chains that connect to the main EOS as much as you want. So let me give you a scenario. So let's say like we have let's say a big Fortune 500 company. They would like to they would like to do a lot of things on EOS. What they would do is they would go to the main EOS and write a small smart contract on the main EOS that connects to this side chain. And they would write all their business logic on the side chain. They could run that EOS within their organization or within a group of big companies. And what happens is every time a transaction happens, it executes on the side chain. And whenever they like to checkpoint something or to write something to the main chain, they could just send that transaction to the main chain. So how it works is, so the idea is you could have as many different side chains, each side chain doing what their intended purpose is. So think of Uber, for example. Uber could write a small smart contract on the EOS main chain and run their entire operation on a side chain. So all the vehicle fleets, all those kind of data could come up on this network. It's completely run by them, but they checkpoint to the main chain. So the idea is everything could be distributed. Every chain could communicate to each other all through, and there's various configurations. You can either have different block producers producing the side chain. You could have organizations running the side chain. EOS makes any sort of combination possible. So you would see a lot of this in the next few months.
And this is all due to the fact that it's an open source, non-proprietary software. So basically anybody can use it, correct?
Exactly. So the Ethereum also can do this. What happens with Ethereum is they don't have this side inter-blockchain communication feature, although they are open source. So there is this code feature that supports this. And the other feature is that it just takes 1.3 seconds for something called an irreversible confirmation. So what happens is if you want to do the same thing on Bitcoin, it would take something like 2 hours. A smart contract cannot wait for like 2 hours for confirmation. With EOS, it really makes it possible. So even though it's open source, you really need a lot of infrastructure and coding to support this, and EOS has all that right out of the box.
It's fascinating. I mean, the more I think about this, the more I just like my mind starts to really take off with all the possibilities of all the different blocks and chains and interconnectivity and how this thing starts to work out. And it's just, it really is a complex mind game. How this
Yeah, it
can
is.
go.
Yeah, it's really complex, and I really appreciate the Block One team to put together everything. Like, I'm sure you know about software projects. Hardly anything gets delivered on time and on promises. If you look at Block One, they've said back in June that they're going to launch this chain on June. I'm sure. I mean, internally there's a lot of things happening, but you can see that largely on schedule and perfectly executing on time and so on, which is like impossible for a software project, which is another great thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've you know, I sometimes sit there and I think about how this is going to play out, and I start thinking about all the complexities to it. And I'm sitting there and after about I can see how, I mean, how people can get so wrapped up in this thing that it really does it can get pretty far out there. I mean, I talk to my son about this all the time, and I say this just gets wilder and wilder. I mean, this is, I never thought I'd be involved with something that this has this kind of it's just so interesting. I mean, I don't know how people find it. I don't know how people find other people find it, but to me, it's just it's really riveting. That's all the only word I can say. It's riveting. It just grabs your attention and just holds on to it because of how this actually can be something that can really change a lot of things in the world. I mean, just really change tremendous amounts of business done in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you just look at, for example, just the simple things for getting mass adoption, like if you look at just the active key, owner key, I'm not sure how familiar everyone is in the group. So how it works is in Ethereum or with Bitcoin or with most of the blockchains, if you lose your private key or if your private key is stolen, all your funds are taken out and you're pretty much lost. With EOS, you have something called an owner key and an active key. So what happens is the owner key is kind of your master key, and you have this active. What you can do with EOS is you can set it up so that any transaction that goes out of my wallet would take, let's say, how many days you want. Let's say I can only send an EOS from A to B, lock that transaction. It has to take 3 days to execute or like 1 hour to execute. So what you can do is you can write a simple, you can just go to a website, and we would have websites like this in the future. You just say, if there is any transaction initiated from my wallet, send me an email, send me a text message or whatever. And if your key is stolen and somebody makes this transaction, it has to be first published on the blockchain. And depending on the duration that you set, so if you said any transaction should be gone executed only after 3 days. So if you say you get a message, a notification, hey, I didn't really ask for this transaction, I'll be like, oh my God, okay, somebody's stolen my key. I can easily go in, use the owner key and cancel the transaction of the action. So then what happens is you won't even lose your funds. And so this is another great feature of EOS. I don't know if I explained it properly, but the whole concept of owner and active key makes it such a way that you can really not even lose your funds and all that. So there's lots of features in EOS.
Yeah, I think Dan Lambert uses that analogy where if I lay my wallet on the table, it's still my wallet even if somebody else takes it. You know, there's ownership property rights here versus if if Bitcoin and some of these others, Ethereum, where if you lose your private key, you've lost your funds. Where with EOS, you still maintain ownership and people respect those ownerships of your property through the ability to have like you say, there's a little bit of time there that gives you an opportunity to reclaim your property, correct? Before the block is actually put so that it's irreversible.
Exactly. So, and you define this. So, if you want, you could have like majority of your funds could be in one wallet, which you can say only allow transactions from this to be executed after 3 days of it being sent. You could have another small wallet for your daily transactions. You could be like, okay, this wallet, I want it to go instantly. And from my big wallet, I would transfer it periodically to my smaller wallet. So you could have this chain of wallets, and you could have one where you just send it instantly and all those kind of things. So you can set it up the way you want. You can have the owner key active. So it's like a lot of features, which is not even these features. So the features that EOS has like this are not even thought of by other blockchains. Like they haven't even thought of implementing such features, already ready to go on June 1st. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Yeah, I've thought about that a lot too. How much more advanced EOS is than the other blockchains. So anyway, I'm on about close to an hour on this video. So I generally don't like to make videos very long because I know after a while people get. But I think this information is really important. And I mean, if you're going to be a player in this space, you better kind of understand what's going on. And to me, that's just a good thing, because the more you understand it, the more you want to own it and you want to keep it. You're not just a trader and price goes up, I'll sell a little bit. You're going to want to hold on to EOS because there's a lot of value in holding this token. And so
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So give me your final take on it. Give me anything else you want to tell me about, or anything else you want to tell everybody about the platform. Anything else? Some inside stuff. Give me some of the best stuff you got.
So yeah, I mean, EOS is pretty public. The whole what's happening is public. You can see the Telegram channels and so on. I would recommend like people to, if you're interested in development, please join the EOS developers channel. If you like to know more about block production, you can join the block productions channel. And every code, everything is public. It's completely out there, and like you have YouTube videos to learn from. It's all very good. And then, as you mentioned just before your question, EOS is like a long-term play. The whole idea is to hold on to it. It's not like a transaction. It's like I think Kyle at EOS Vibes mentioned it's more like land. So the idea is, yeah, you'll have rental income in the future. There is something called staking. So instead of the developers bringing their own RAM, you can stake your RAM for them. So you could earn potentially like rent. If you hold 1,000 EOS, you could potentially get a small percentage every month paid to you. So there's lots of option with EOS. It's not a short-term play. It's not like I don't know, all those kind of things are typical crypto. Yeah, but the whole thing is really interesting. EOS brings a lot of features. We're launching in about a week or so. Yeah, we are all really excited about it. Have a look at our website if you'd like to confirm your registration. It's very simple. It's best to get it sorted right now. Make sure you own the registration key and all that. So yeah, those are all the points.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Awakening. It's Kyle, right? He's over in Europe, in England too, correct?
Yeah, he's over in UK too, and he has a good YouTube channel which explains all about EOS and things, which is quite interesting too. Yes.
Yeah, I think that I've listened to his channel, and when he made that analogy with real estate, I picked up on that too. I thought that was a great point. The way he did that was really good. So, yeah. So, is it England or the UK? How do you refer to it?
Yeah, it's just the UK. Yeah, like one big
Mm-hmm.
like the United States.
Yeah, I mean it's the United States, and it's like I'm in California, which is, you know, I think a little bit different than the rest of the country because everybody thinks California is just a little bit off. But, you know, it's interesting that everybody kind of refers to it as the United States because there's a lot of diversity here in the United States and a lot of different things going on. But anyway, you know, one of these days I'm going to get over to your part of the world and take a look at it because I'd love to see London and the whole where the common law began.
Yeah.
I studied common law quite a bit, and I know it all originated there over in England and common law and all the stuff that because my background is not only in programming, I went to law school too. So the contract concept is really interesting to me. All the common law and the way things are being distributed on the internet and the way technology is taking over. That you know, all the various ways that contracts are written and, you know, all the different things. So it's pretty interesting stuff. It's all fascinating. Just all
good. I think good. You should also look into the arbitration side. Have you considered looking into EOS arbitration side?
Yeah, you know, it's just so much to take in. I'm still trying to figure out, you know, and I think a lot of this is still unfolding exactly how this is all going to play out. But the concept of smart contracts to me is fascinating. The ability to lay something out on a blockchain that's immutable, something that has a timestamp, and something that's written in code, so there isn't all this wiggle room or all this other stuff. But yeah, the arbitration thing is very interesting. I'm going to really take in on some of that stuff, and I know that he has a lot of plans for how things get resolved in the how do they refer to it as a constitution? Is that the way Dan refers to it?
Exactly. So with the arbitration contract, what happens is if, let's say, a seller sells X and they have stolen funds or whatever, every smart contract would have something like, I promise to pay person B for this service, this much EOS, and any dispute will be resolved by this arbitrator. So you can set that in the smart contract. And what happens is, if there is a dispute, you go to an arbitrator and the arbitrator makes a decision, and then 15 of the 21 block producers approve that decision. They can reverse the transaction or whatever. So there's a whole lot of scope with arbitration. So they call EOS as the first law and order blockchain. So the whole arbitration system makes it possible to have law and order and things in the US.
Yeah, and that's with Thomas Cox, right? Is he the one that's working on the arbitration?
Yeah, exactly. So he started saying the word law and order blockchain with Thomas Cox. So the whole idea is that yeah. So that you can essentially have like if a dispute to be resolved in a proper way, like approved by everybody, you decide the arbitrators, and you could even have contracts like the Ethereum blockchain or something. So you could say that I promise to transfer A to B, and there is no arbitration. That is like you can even have a contract where you approve that okay, I'm doing it. I'm like what do you call it, like a like highly sophisticated investor kind of system. I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't want any arbitration on this. You can even draft a contract like that if you like. But most contracts would be like you will always have an arbitrator, and an arbitrator would be earning a fee separately, and they would be paid off the chain, or you can have a combination of that. So all sorts of things are possible with arbitration, without arbitration. Anything is possible on the EOS blockchain.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. So, like I say, I'm running on about an hour here. So I want to really thank you for all your content and information. You're very, very knowledgeable. I think people should support you as a block producer. I think people should support what you're doing. And not to mention, you're a really nice guy. You seem very friendly, and you've always been, very attentive to any questions I've had, and, been very quick on emails and stuff like that. So I really appreciate it, and I really support what you're doing, and I support your efforts as block producer, because I do believe you'd make a great, great block producer. And, I will be voting for you. I hope everybody else does too.
Hey, thanks a lot, Carl. That's really useful. Thank you so much. Anyway, so thanks for the opportunity to be on your channel. It's been great.
Yeah, I mean, anytime people add to the channel as far as content's concerned, I'm always happy to accommodate and give a platform to people that are like yourself, EOS followers, and EOS involved with the platform, because it really is a great platform, and I really love it. And like you said, what you said a little bit ago, every time you look at this, every step they take, you just marvel at how well it's planned out and engineered. So I'm a big EOS fan. That's what only thing I do on the internet. I mean, I'm not, and I'm from the old day of playing penny stocks. I was a penny stockbroker too. So I've done all the speculation stuff, and I've looked at everything. And now I'm just really stuck on EOS. That's my platform. That's the one I'm going to stay with, and that's the one I'm going to build on, and that's the one I'm going to be with. So yeah, I'm really excited about it too. I'm really excited about the mainland launch.
Yeah, great. We got less than 2 weeks now here.
Yeah, it's coming down pretty quick.
Let me get back to work.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate it. I'll have this up pretty quick. Hopefully there'll be some questions, and we'll be off and running. Okay, thanks, Roshan.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Bye. Bye.
I really appreciate it. Bye.